So in this 40K podcast, before we get into this, the tactics of momentum in 40K and what happens when it stalls, I want to put out there what I believe is an important social contract for 40K on here, in that you should always play the game out to the end. Always. And I will say most of my 40K games, most of them, it's neck and neck. It's close. It's there. It might happen. I might win. I might lose. It's really up until the end of the game, the last turn or two, where we get a definitive winner, where, look, things are obviously going to play out. But it is tense. But there are times when either I made a mistake or it's a bad matchup. I mean, to this day, honestly, to this day, I'll play it out. I will. I'll never turn down a pickup game. A lot of games that I play in 40K are pickup games where I just bring an army. You have your army. What do you have? Let's play. My Tyranids, all my incarnation, the various incarnations of my Tyranids, the various high fleets, I have never beaten Dark Eldar. We're talking, I don't know, 20-something years of 40K, and I can't beat Dark Eldar with my Tyranids? And that you know, of course, that spills over to my other armies. A game where I was playing Dark Eldar versus my Grey Knights. I was bugging. I was bugging because I'm like, oh man, you know, Dark Eldar, they have like a mystique to them on there. And I'm like, wait, no. Every other army I'm okay with fighting Dark Eldar. You know, I win, I lose, but it's a good fight. It's just Tyranids. I can't do it. So sometimes you have those matchups, and that's true, or the dice go against you. Don't quit. Play the game out. 2 reasons. First, the social contract, right? You're taking time out of your day. I'm taking time out of my day when we probably should be taking care of school or work or other responsibilities. We're going to roll some dice. We're going to have fun. So within that construct, we want to make this game special. We want to make this game interesting, right? We want to maximize the time on it. So turn 1, turn 2, I start getting beat up really, really bad for whatever reason. Don't quit. Okay, allow your opponent that enjoyment. Give them that. I mean, certainly if you were crushing them, you'd be like, hey, this is 40K, play it out. Never quit from the social contract perspective. On the tactical perspective, I say never quit because there's a couple of factors in the genesis and the DNA of 40K that makes it a little bit different than other war games. And I've covered this in other podcasts, but I just want to kind of really go 1, 2, 3, lay this out for those of you coming into this podcast who are new to my channel. First is the fact that it's a D6 based game. You roll D6s. That does not give enough of a spread of probability and powers and everything given the variety of armies in 40K. Not a criticism. A lot of war games work off a D6 system, and a lot of war games have similar challenges to 40K. Second is the fact that armies are much, much bigger, and the physical bulk of the table. Now, I know really you can play on any size table out there. Mega games have bigger tables. Kill Team has a smaller table, but kind of the 3-panel 40K standard board for a tournament, that's been around forever. Case in point, going back in Google Images, just do like Warhammer 40K 3rd edition PDF rulebook. And when you look through that, they have a 1,500 point army. I think it's Black Templar's army out there. And what's interesting about that is 1,500 points back then, you look at the army, it's essentially Kill Team. It's crazy. So Games Workshop, and 1,500 points was the standard for tournaments back then. Things have kind of evolved where they're much bigger. And then the final element that's up there is it's a you go, I go system. I hang out, you move, you shoot, I make some saves, I remove models. There might be a couple of little things in there where I have to test or things break out of order. But for the most part, it's a back and forth. And again, a lot of war games are like this. But these 3 things come together in that you're against a final timer, in that every turn you're getting weaker and weaker because you're losing elements in your army. And if we look at the mobility of the current edition of 40K, which I really like, I like the fact that a lot of units are faster, and in general the speed of the game is faster. But what this means is that things are in range turn 1. things are in range very, very quickly. And in previous games, you could, this is kind of the interesting point on my Samhan Warhost. For Eldar, jet bikes, Vipers, fire prisms, wave serpents, everything's mech'd up. In the past, I could utilize my speed to stay out of range, or my speed to focus on one side of the table and then spend a turn zipping to the other side of the table. I still can to some extent, but I see an evolution going on here, unfortunately, with Guardians. It's always the poor Guardians, right? Round up like the farmers and the artisans and just give them a shuriken catapult, pack them into the wave serpent, and send them out on there. But what I'm noticing is I need more wound counters. Literal counters. Think of the models as counters, where I am trading my opponent's dice pool with these counters on there. I mean, if we kind of look at it from that perspective, because even with the mobility of my Samhan, and that's not to say I'm not doing well with the army, it's my opponent is quicker in place than in previous editions of 40K. So what we have this going on, this is where momentum is, where I'm trying to move, you're trying to move. Often we want to get to the midfield. If you think about your gaming table, you have your deployment zone. That's a band, you know, this kind of invisible band. I have my deployment zone. That's my invisible band. And then the middle of the table, that middle band, is the midfield. If you get to the midfield, you can radiate out in terms of movement and in terms of shooting. You can cover all 4 table quarters. You could lock down and shoot or move into your opponent's deployment zone. Likewise, if things get really bad and your opponent's pummeling you, you have some place to fall back into your deployment zone. Whereas if you're in if you are in your deployment zone and you start taking losses and you want to try and move or reinforce, you're literally up against the hard table edge on there. So as we push momentum means moving out with your units. You know, think primes with you, roll out, right? You're moving out to the midfield. You start taking losses. You start getting hurt. You start literally losing the volume of dice because those wound counters, those models are coming off. What do we do at this point? So you're at whatever turn, and you realize I'm getting hit bad. I've lost a lot of stuff. The mission for the momentum has stalled. I'm probably not going to win this game of 40K. You know, you're just looking. You're just being honest. I'm probably not going to win. And, you know, maybe it's mid-game. What are you going to do? Have you ever played with someone that's quit? Just give up at that point. And you might very well lose. So we're going to play this through for the social contract, but also taking into account the DNA on there. Now, what we do at this point, if I'm playing my Cornate Berserkers and that happens, it's really irrelevant because I'm still going to charge you anyway. The entire army is just geared up to run across the table and introduce you to the Cornate glory through bolt pistols and chainswords. But if I'm playing something a little more tactical on there, my Grey Knights or my Necrons, Tyranids can be tactical too, then what I want to do, what I want us to do is pause. And now you go into defensive mode. You go where, based on the table, the physical gaming table, where can you move to take stuff out of line of sight? Where can you go to get cover? Not that you shouldn't be getting cover, but sometimes in the push for momentum in the game, you know, you literally have to run through open space. Essentially what you do is you pull back and you consolidate to the midfield. And you just literally hunker down. You're still going to get shot at. You're still going to take losses. But now by not being out in the open, by trying to hide some of your models, by trying to bulk up and condense up, it's going to be much harder. While this is happening, you're physically, depending on where your models are spread out on the table, you're physically going to try and move back. And you might only have one turn to do this. You're going to move back to the center of the table. You're going to try and get all of your units relatively close to each other. And this is because now we will have the lanes of fire, the ability to fire, overlapping. Let's illustrate this for a second. We're going to jump to Space Marines because everyone plays Space Marines. And if you're not playing Space Marines now, you fought against Space Marines, and Games Workshop knows in 6 to 8 months you will be buying Space Marines. I have a tactical squad on the left. Heavies and specials don't matter. I have a tactical squad on the right side of the gaming table. If I take my tape measure and measure out the range of the weapons, put it in the center, put it on the models, and draw a bubble around it. That's the threat bubble. In theory, that in that invisible 360-degree bubble of shooting, anything that walks in, rolls in, flies in, appears in, whatever, moves in, I can shoot at. Whether it's effective or not, of course, depends on the volume, depends on the weapon, strength, toughness, saves, all that type of stuff. But I'm a threat. If you're outside of that bubble, I don't get to roll any dice. The tac squad on the left and the tac squad on the right ends of the table, the bubbles don't overlap. So if you take some of your models and you attack one of the tac squads, you're going to receive fire back from that tac squad, but the tac squad on the other side of the table is not going to be able to affect you. But if I move both of those tactical squads together, closer, and they don't have to be neck to neck, shoulder to shoulder, foot to foot, if I move them closer, so now this 360-degree threat bubble overlaps, if you move to shoot one unit, I will have an increased volume of dice to shoot back. That's the idea of threat bubbles. And that's also up in the podcast archive on my channel and on my blog. Going back to pulling back to the center of the table, because this is going to allow you to radiate out. Pulling your units in so the threat bubbles of each unit that you have overlap, which means as your opponent continues the assault, you'll at least be maximizing your dice pool, the dice of all the models that you can generate in shooting back. So we've got that going on. The third piece, any models that you might have hanging back in your deployment zone. Obviously, if they're Devastators, heavy weapon teams, long-range type stuff, they can stay there. But if it's shorter range stuff, if it's some stuff that you were holding back or you pulled models back, rush them up to the middle of the table. Get all critical mass in the center of that table, hunker down. Now, there's this cover, I think it's the it's one of the editions of the Space Marine Codex. I think the 3rd edition one. It's got the Crimson Fists, Draken's Last Stand, and he's got like this power fist, and he's just screaming, holding a banner, and it's this massive amount of Crimson Fists on there, just Last Stand. That's like every space. I've just described every Space Marine cover ever. That is what you're looking to do. You're looking to stay in place, maximize your dice pool, overlap your fire, bring in all your models, and now going back to the fact that 40K is a D6-based system, and it's very swingy, you might get a lucky round. You might create some opportunity. You might focus fire on 1 or 2 key units and actually get lucky and take them out. You might be able to regain momentum. This is the only way to regain momentum. And in that moment, because you're in the middle of the table and it radiates out into your deployment zone, your opponent's deployment zone, the 4 table quarters, if the round shifts, if the dice shift, you are in a position of momentum to regain and push forward. I'm not saying this is going to turn every game around. I'm not saying that when we get to a certain point where you've just taken such a beating, you don't have the dice left and you realize it, that might happen. But every couple of games, by being in this center field position, it gives you a chance. It gives you a chance to fight the game out and to capitalize if things do shift. Again, because it's a D6-based system. That's what I do when I play tactically. So I do with my Tyranids, my Necrons, my Grey Knights. I do my best not to be in that position, but 40K is 40K. It sometimes happens for a variety of reasons. My Coronate Berserkers, when in doubt, charge.